Thank you so much, Exito, for having me here. And it's a great pleasure to talk something about the cyber attacks, where a lot of time we only talk about preventive technologies or monitoring. We talk about AML, and something which is very close to my heart is about resiliency. So, if you all remember, possibly the first time we heard about such kind of attacks where a business impact has happened is possibly Stuxnet in 2010. So now, after Stuxnet, there was series of such attacks. Like we heard about Target, we heard about the PETA, non-PETA, or other ransomwares. We heard about Sony Pictures, and then people started realizing about the kind of impact. Cybersecurity has started becoming a board topic. Okay, nowadays we are also seeing certain other attacks like supply chain attacks, and what we recently saw about what happened to the pages and what Israel did. I really don't know what next, and I'm lucky to have this panelists here. But let's look at some of the statistics. Okay, so if you look at per breach, it is in last year as per survey. This is not my statistics. But as per survey, it's $4.88 million is the cost per breach. Cyber attacks or the cyber crime industry is going to be a 10.5 trillion by 2025. 72% organizations are increasing their budgets in terms of cyber resiliency. And it is also proven that 20% of the organizations which has a mature cyber resiliency program, they were able to recover 20% faster than other organizations. Okay, so when we look at all the cyber resiliency and all the cyber attacks, but some of the key factors, if you look at the kind of digital transformations that we are doing, okay, the IT/OT convergence and all, that is like earlier those systems were isolated. Now they are getting exposed. There are a lot of default passwords or unpatched vulnerabilities and all. Plus the speed at which we are going digital. Obviously, cybersecurity has to be an integral part of it. And we are seeing all these breaches. So I will not take much time, but I will directly go to Ninad. So, Ninad, wearing both hats of IT and cybersecurity, I know it's a tough job to handle cybersecurity alone, and you are having these both hats. So would like to understand what this cyber resilience means to you, how it has evolved over a period of time, and how it differs from the traditional cybersecurity practices that we do.
All right, thank you so much. Firstly, I'd like to thank the organizers out here to have included us in the panel, and thanks for moderating this particular panel. In fact, just before I can address your question, I just wanted to also reflect on the fact that you mentioned wearing two hats. It's going to be tough. Yes, it's tough, but it also helps because we have friends like you and the entire community out here who keeps helping us. We, in fact, reflect, we communicate, we observe, and we, in fact, get a lot of experience, gain a lot of experience from the attacks and the incidents that they have sort of experienced. So thank you very much for the community. To address your question here, what does cyber resilience means? At least to me, cyber resilience is basically, if I have to define it, in my opinion, it is the ability of an organization to anticipate, to withstand, to recover from, and of course to adapt to cyber threats and cyber attacks, right? Now, to address your second question about the evolution, obviously it has evolved from the fact that the traditional methodology, the approach focuses more on prevention of the attacks, and it has now moved into more of a holistic approach, including detection, recovery, response, and so on and so forth, right? So traditional methodology obviously focuses more on preventing, while cyber resilience, it actually assumes that the attack is going to happen, and it emphasizes more on reducing or minimizing the impact of that attack. So that's the basic difference between cybersecurity and cyber resilience. Of course, cyber resilience covers a lot more than just the cyber security. That's how I would put it. I'm sure I'll let you also kind of talk about what are the differences. But in our organization, we believe more into cyber resilience than cybersecurity, right? Because we started off, most of the organizations start with cybersecurity, and then they mature enough to move into the cyber resilience front. Now, of course, a lot of people also talk about whether cybersecurity, cyber resilience are all buzzwords, right? But I do believe these are not only buzzwords, especially because in today's connected day and age, it's all about ensuring how do we minimize the impact of cyber attacks. It's not if, but it is when the cyber attacks are going to happen to any organization and every organization. Obviously, with this new act coming, DPDP and all that stuff, right? So it is more for the organizations to report also. That's one of the responsibilities of the organizations. So you see now more and more attacks happening. Not that they weren't happening earlier. They were always happening, but now we have to disclose those attacks as well. All right, otherwise it's going to be a big problem in terms of crores of penalties and so on and so forth. So I believe cyber resilience is the way ahead, present and future as well, rather than just the cyber security.
Very well put across, and I think, that assume breach mentality is very important nowadays. So coming back to Abhijit, Abhijit, we always say that, phishing attacks, or most of the news I heard about, phishing attack was the initial vector and all those things, but I'm sure that, while we investigate those attacks, there are multiple other factors as well. So, but one definite thing is people are the weakest link, what we feel. So, what is the importance of, user awareness in such kind of cyber resilience program? Because possibly, the traditional awareness programs may not suffice. So, what are your views on this?
See, I think user awareness, you are right. Humans continue to be the weakest link, right? And see, user awareness programs have to be looked at objectively. It is the moment it is looked at a tick in the box exercise, I think the whole purpose is defeated, right? Now, why do you need that awareness? First thing is that why is that awareness required, right? How would you want to communicate to an employee or to the people in general as to what is this awareness all about? Why is it required if you are not aware or if you do not follow protocols? What's the sort of damage that you can do? What's the sort of impact that an organization can go through? So I think those days of kind of running your digital module saying that read four pages and answer 4 questions and you've got a 5 out of 5 and you're through with your awareness program. I think no, that's not the case. I think scenario-based training programs are required. So in an awareness program, how do you act or react in a particular scenario? I think that is important, right? What is relevant in a particular scenario may not be relevant in the other scenario. What is right in one scenario may not be right in the other scenario. So I think you cannot take a silver bullet and say that, okay, I've kind of done a cyber awareness training and then that's about it, right? No, that doesn't work. So that whole piece of driving, what is the objective? Why are you wanting to do that training? What do you want the learner to learn after that training, right? What's the impact in case you don't deliver, and what can be overall business impact? I think I really do not see the trainings today attempted in this format. It is just a tick in the box sort of a format. I don't think that works.
Obviously, and those you are absolutely right. Those tick in the box and those 5 out of 5 marks, that doesn't certify that the employee is aware. Obviously, how he behaves in the real-time scenario is more important. Absolutely. Yeah, coming back to you, Nirad, since you are wearing technology and cyber both hats, nowadays we talk a lot about AI, ML adoption, Gen AI and all. So obviously it has a plus and minus sides also. So can you throw some light on what are the positive and negative impact of AI, ML on cyber resilience?
Oh, there is a lot of impact, by the way, for AI ML. I mean, nowadays this AI ML is the current hot topic, and it is here to stay for the future as well, right? And obviously there are positives and the negatives as well. Positives, from the positive standpoint, it is all about AI ML can certainly help in threat detection. That is one. The second piece is automating security tasks. There's a lot of automation that come in. Security tasks could be very mundane, to be very honest. And you will need a lot of people, a lot of humans to conduct those tasks. AI ML comes in, it reduces, it automates those sort of tasks as well. And furthermore, it enhances the ability and capability of threat and attack detection, incident management. Yeah. So these are three items that I can talk about, I can think about in terms of the AI ML. There are several others also, I'm sure about it. And our audience here are well aware of this. However, when it comes to the other positive aspects, right, I truly believe that if we can automate those security tasks, say for example, there are 100 security tasks that a human can and need to conduct as a part of the standard sort of operating procedure. Almost around 90-95% of those mundane activities can be done and conducted by AI ML, and we have done that in our organization as well. Yeah, so that's one aspect of it. Talking about certain negative impacts, from the AI ML perspective, whilst they're positive, it's like if the police can, or the cops can go ahead and conduct something, the attackers can also make sure that they can use the same AI ML algorithms to sort of create more sophisticated attacks, day in and day out, because they keep changing, the vectors keeps changing. And also at the same time, they can also make sure, because of this improved and enhanced connectivity, they can actually go ahead and enhance the attack surface. So earlier, if without an AI ML, if they could traverse maybe one network in an organization, having several networks, AI ML can help them, or rather they can use the power of AI ML to proliferate into the multiple networks of the organization and just kill the entire organization, So that's the other piece, so that's the negative aspect of it. But I truly believe that positives overscore the negatives always. And I truly believe that if properly utilized, we can use that power, harness the power of AI and ML to make sure that we can cull the entire negativity, the negative aspects of it, and we can actually take the attackers head on using the same AI ML algorithms. So I would rather say that it overscores the negative aspects.
Obviously, thanks, Nirad. In fact, I just recollect one fact. When most of us started our career, it was like, antivirus vendors used to sell their solution as having signature for 7,000 odd viruses, right? Nowadays, we are in a situation where, possible in between, we also saw ransomware as a service where we can purchase those services. Now I can just go on ChatGPT and, create my own malware. It's that easy. So obviously, as Nirad said, the way we, utilize the AI ML, we can take a head-on with the hackers. Yeah. So Abhijit, coming back to you, we're coming from a banking industry, and we recently heard about DORA that got, effective in EU. So what kind of regulations the RBI is coming up with, or how the regulatory is helping you positively?
That's a pretty interesting question. So I think, if you look at what the regulators do, they have been doing, but what has changed in the mannerism that regulators are now attempting with audits is, they look at three things. First, they look at intention. Second, they look at action. And third, they look at sustainability. So what is the intention of the organization, not the individual? What's the intention? What's the action? And what's the sustainability? And I'll kind of, in my own personal assessment, I'll kind of share a fact. I was reading an article which said that of all the organizations that got breached, 37% of them got breached the second time. Now, if we wonder why that happened, it is possibly because they were doing point closures. It was not a sustainable model. Somewhere the intention, the action, and the sustainability piece of it was absolutely missing. Otherwise, there is no reason why 37% of it would repeat again, right? Now, this is important, right? And the second thing that they look across is, again, I call it the PPTA, my own self-coined acronym. This PPTA stands for People, Process, Tools and Technology, Analytics and Automation. They really want to drive through that. So today, if you present them an Excel sheet saying that this is how I am tracking my actionable, they may say, okay, but will that be treated as a sustainable process? The answer to that is no. They'll look at automation, analytics to be able to drive it. I think this change of stance from the regulator is a pushback to all the organizations, all the regulated entities, banks in specifics, that you have to look at your intention, action, and sustainability, and you have to look at the complete PPTA vertical. You cannot miss any one of them.
Absolutely, absolutely. In fact, nowadays we hear about double extortion, triple extortion, and one interesting thing is post-COVID, this is again becoming very difficult, because what has happened is people on the cyber defense side have switched their jobs. The cyber attackers have also switched their jobs. Earlier we used to know that this particular cyber attack gang will target this kind of sector, but nowadays anybody can target anyone. And the guy who has penetrated you may not be the same guy who has putting a ransomware, may not be the same guy who is taking your data out, and may not be the same guy who is asking for bitcoins. So it's very important that we plug the gaps holistically rather than point in time, because finally, end of day, you can't change your network architecture. The other guy just needs one loophole. Yeah. So coming back to you, Ninad, would like to understand how the support from the boards. Obviously, employee we touch best, and how the support from the board, how you involve the senior management to make these kind of programs more effective, and what kind of maturity do you expect?
All right. Okay. Let me kind of address it in two parts. As such, before I get into the board conversation, first and foremost, it's all about the associates and employees itself, right? The first being, how do we ensure that, and he touched base, Abhijit also touched base on this earlier. I just wanted to elaborate more on that. As such, how do we ensure that our employees, our associates, the humans, are well-versed with the cyber resilience program as such? So first and foremost, and the way we have to disclose this and conduct this is in parts. First and foremost, there has to be fresher and refresher training. There has to be training going on for the entire year, year-on-year basis. And it's just not about training once. You have to keep doing it. You have to refresh their memories as well. So that is first part. Second is, we need to have very targeted awareness campaigns. The programs need to be targeted towards the audience that we believe in. Yeah. So that's the second part. And third is clear communication. Communication is of, if you don't communicate properly or entirely, so that's the biggest problem. So you need to have targeted communication, very clear, concise communication. What do you want to kind of bring about? What are you talking about? How do you measure it as well, right? So that's the third part. Now addressing your other part of question, which is board. Board plays a very crucial and pivotal role in cyber resilience. Without the board's sort of buy-in, I don't think so this is going to go anywhere. Your cyber resilience program is going to go anywhere. So first, and I'll explain how and what the board should do. First and foremost, board should set the tone for the entire program. Of course, along with the CISOs, now obviously DPOs and so on and so forth. The second is, board is responsible for allocating the appropriate resources. And when I talk about resources, it's not only about funds. It's about overall resources, the manpower, the tools that are required, The third being the absolute aspect of our ability to measure, and that is where ensuring the board should ensure enough and more accountability that comes into picture. So the board actually sets that tone for all these three aspects. And obviously, fortunately, nowadays, the CISOs and the security officers, they also have a seat in the board, right? And that is absolutely required. Nowadays, the security experts, they directly report to the board, rather even to the CEO of the organization. So that really sort of helps a lot from the program management, setting up the framework, measuring also, and so on and so forth. So having said that, board has a very huge responsibility along with the CISOs to ensure the program is appropriately laid down. And also at the same time, it is adopted by all and sundry within the organization.
Thanks, Ninad. So, Abhijit, we hear a lot about zero trust architecture. So, would like to hear from you in terms of how this zero trust architecture is helping in, maturing your cyber resilience program.
Yep, thanks for that question, Rajan. So, zero trust architecture, if you kind of look at it from my own perspective, zero trust is a framework. It's not a solution. And zero trust has to cut across the complete infrastructure and technology stack, right? I think what most organizations have done today is they've kind of adopted to a good extent, they've adopted the zero trust network access and have termed that we have a zero trust framework. No, you are nowhere near, right? Let me ask you in this room, how many organizations use Active Directory? Oh, and how many of you do single sign-on? Zero trust fails. It's already failed. Now, how many of us are thinking to get out of AD and SSO? No one. Literally. So, this is where the problem starts. See, the zero trust piece of it says that don't verify and then trust. If you are doing an SSO, you have already trusted. Where is the verification, right? So I think you've got to look at it very differently. Right? At least start with privileged accounts. At least start with privileged accesses. At least start with critical applications. Look at the zero trust architecture. Don't look at zero trust network access. That is not zero trust, right? I think zero trust, in terms of doing network segmentation, in terms of doing doing east-west traffic monitoring, I can vouch that at least 98% of the organizations will not be monitoring east-west traffic.
In fact,
this is where the problem is.
That's how it is being sold in the market.
Absolutely. Now, the moment you do at a perimeter, your perimeter, the north-south traffic, internet to inside and outside to internet, is a pretty sized and pretty defined traffic, I'm not saying there are no threats there. I'm not talking about threats at all, but that's a pretty defined traffic. But what about your east-west? Do you know what's happening? You don't. But then why are you trusting? So I think I have all these questions. So I think we as an organization, I think as enterprises, we are very far off from zero trust. But if you kind of start adopting in phases, you do micro segmentation, you do network segmentation, you do you kind of do application pods and figure out who wants to access what. You do hardware level of authentication to say which hardware can send traffic or not. A lot of it is there. I think we're nowhere near, Ranjan.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the focus has to be both internal as well as external entities. We are just focusing on the external entities.
And that too only for remote access.
Exactly. That's the problem. Thanks, Abhijit. Ninad, I'll come back to you in terms of now we saw the preventive monitoring controls, and now we are talking about cyber resilience. So, would like to understand, how do you, you talked about board as well, how do you diversify your cybersecurity investments into preventive, detective, and the resilience part?
All right, I think it's a very valid question because there is no, like you said, there is no silver bullet, right? It is extremely difficult to allocate funds to a very specific segment within the entire cyber resilience sort of a program. So we need to understand from the organization standpoint, first of all, you classify your data and information and your assets. Now, based on your asset classification, then you design your program. What happens generally is a lot of organizations do it reverse. They straight away go into a cyber security or cyber resilience program without even talking and thinking about the splitting off and classification of data and assets as information assets. So what I would suggest is first classify the information assets. Then depending on the criticality of the information assets that you have, and every sector, every organization has their own assets. So say for example, you have the FMCG organization, the beverages organization. They will have their beverage formulas, right, to take care of. So you will need to actually have and protect that kind of formulas. So you design and revolve your entire program around it. Second is just another example, it's all about banking. In the BFSI industry, it's all about data, it's all about privacy, it's all about confidentiality. So you classify that information assets accordingly and then design and build and create your program sort of accordingly. There itself, you will understand and come to know what kind of funds or allocation of funds you require across the board and under what buckets. So whether it's just the cybersecurity program you want, or you want all-encompassing, a larger-than-life cyber resilience program, and then accordingly you have to kind of garner the funds. Obviously, you'll have to go to the board with your begging bowl as well, that I need the funds. And of course, the CFO, the all-important CFO also comes into picture. But I think nowadays, as you mentioned earlier, the board also understands the criticality of this entire program, and if not done, what are the consequences? What are the penalties associated with this? So I think there's enough and more buy-in from the board side as well. But nowadays, it's all about classifying the information assets, designing the program, earmarking the funds for a specific segment, and then obviously measuring it, monitoring it, and then further evolving that program as well.
Thanks, Anand. So, very, very valid things. And before we wind up, Abhijit, one question for you. We all are in a different phase of cyber resilience. Okay. So, any 3 tips, okay, for organizations who wants to ensure that our cyber resiliency programs evolves and we make a better maturity? Just 3 tips.
So Ranjan, you were saying that, what should organizations look at to improve their cyber resiliency?
Yeah, so
that's the question.
Yeah, correct.
So my take on this is pretty simple. Firstly, invest on visibility. Do you see? Do you have the capability to see? That's point number 1. Point number 2, look at, Gartner calls it CTAM, Continuous Threat Exposure Management. That's pretty important. Look at your attack surface management. I think visibility, CTAM, and ASM combined, please measure what is your cyber risk posture. If that doesn't increase, your resiliency definitely is in a bad shape. If that does not improve, not increase, but if that doesn't improve over a period in time, your resiliency is definitely in a bad shape. That's where I'll leave it.
Thank you so much. So I think it was a very informative session. To conclude, I have just noted down a few points. What we have seen today is basically cyber attacks are here to stay. They are going to evolve, and so does our cyber resiliency program. Cyber resiliency is not something which is luxury, but it's a necessity. Okay, we need to be prepared for it. We need to know if something goes wrong, what are those things which I need in 0 to 4 hours, 4 to 8 hours, 8 to 24 hours. What communications has to happen? What regulator has to be informed? And though, we are discussing it, but right now, but when the actual crisis happens, we all become a headless chickens. And that's why it's very important that, we practice those things. As rightly said by Ninad and Abhijit both, you can't, do it once and say that, yes, the tick mark is done. We have to continuously practice, take a different scenarios, see what went wrong, and then improvise on that. And it's not just about technology, it's about strategy, people, process, and culture. Okay. We have also seen that, the organizations who has a mature cyber resiliency strategy, they have recovered faster than other organizations. Okay. And I would, concluding statement I would say is the attacks will evolve is a fact. We have to evolve our cyber resiliency programs so that, we always stay ahead of these attackers. Thank you so much.
Just to add on to that last point that Ninath said, in terms of looking at the criticality of your applications, I think to start off with, if anyone is really serious about cyber resiliency, please look at the MITRE attack. Please look at the MITRE attack framework. Now, within your organization, if you feel malware is the most critical thing, go back to MITRE attack and see what MITRE attack asks you to do in prevent, detect, and respond. Follow that to the best possible. If Active Directory is your most critical one, MITRE attack has a framework on that too. I think that becomes a very good starting point for everyone. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right.